Hello, my name's Stephen Stacey, and I'm talking to you today from the United Kingdom. My paper is called Beyond Smart, a holistic ecological framework for goal achievement. We're going to be looking at whether we can improve on the current models that help organizations and individuals achieve their goals. The inspiration for this framework actually came from a book that was written in Korea around 1960. It's called The Divine Principle. The first chapter is entitled The Principle of Creation. Our framework for goal achievement is derived directly from the outline of this chapter. In this chapter, we find the core principles by which humans achieve their goals. Another title for my paper might be, or theory or model, might be called The Seven Principles of Creation. In companies in the West and all over the world, we have many good goal-supportive frameworks, like SMART and objectives and key results. However, they are often not useful for more complex goals as they lead to a high failure rate. This points to a fundamental gap between our current models and how human creation actually occurs. Almost all current goal-supporting models treat the human being as a solitary cognitive processor, like a linear step forward. For example, SMART informs us that goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It provides a checklist that excels at defining what the goal is. However, one of the main weaknesses of these models is that they neglect the reality that humans are also driven by values and a search for meaning. Hence, these frameworks become ineffective when motivation is a key component of the goal. This often leads to burnout or people quitting quietly. Because of this problem, the field of management, spirituality, and religion developed. They found out that employees desire work that feels intrinsically worthwhile and connected to something greater than themselves, something meaningful. However, so far, it has been difficult to integrate this truth within current mechanistic models. There's a need for a model that better considers and integrates all the primary elements within the act of creation. Our holistic ecological framework for goal achievement offers two key insights. Firstly, the framework uncovers the structure of the common sense act of goal setting and then systematizes this framework into a rigorous living model. And secondly, the framework uncovers a theoretical constancy. The fundamental principles of goal achievement remain unchanged regardless of the task. As complexity rises, success depends not on new mechanisms, but on a deeper, more conscious application of the principles that construct this framework. So we can look at the architecture of the typical pathway that we humans use to achieve our goals. What is my goal? We can ask. And is my body ready to move forward to achieve it? What resources and people might help me achieve my goal? What communication strategies will help me generate the baby steps and the energy needed for goal fulfillment? We might ask, is this goal worth my time? How does this align with my sense of truth and beauty and goodness? We might ask, which key stakeholders in the system do I also need to respect? My wife, my boss, the shareholders. We might ask, what do we need to learn to achieve this goal? What skills am I lacking? And lastly, how can I get ongoing feedback to help me succeed? These questions are not a checklist, but interdependent dimensions of the creative act. When one is weak, the entire system might be weakened. For example, if we don't have the skills to achieve the goal and we don't learn them, we might not achieve our goal. Or if we don't have the resources, or we lose motivation because the goal is not meaningful, etc. This common sense architecture actually parallels the outline of the principle of creation, the first chapter of the divine principle. The outline can be structured as following: the principle of mind and body unity, the principle of dual characteristics, of diverse inputs, the principle of give and take action, of dialogue to generate energy, the principle of love and beauty, the principle of being as the center of harmony, the principle of personal growth, and the principle of vitality elements. We find that each of these 7 principles of creation are found in the academic realm as tangible fields of study. So firstly, let's look at the principle of mind and body unity. In the academic field, this is called cognitive behavioral alignment. We ask ourselves, what is my goal? And is my body ready to move? First, we think about cognitive clarity. The clearer my goal, the more likely I am to achieve it. Next, we think about executive behavioral readiness. Is the body ready to move to execute the plan? In academic research in this area, we can look at Golwitz's implementation intention research. Next comes the principle of dual characteristics of diverse inputs. The academic field is titled Social and Material Resource Integration. What resources and people might help me achieve my goal? This refers to the identification and acquisition of assets to support the goal. These could be human assets, friends, YouTube videos, learning, books, and other materials. Material assets like money or tools. And lastly, we can talk about political assets like my boss or the local council, for example. In academic research, this aligns with social capital theory. Thirdly, we have the principle of give and take action, of dialogue to generate energy. The academic field is generative interaction. This is a dynamic process of communicative exchange that converts sleeping resources into energy and momentum. Communication is not just information transfer, it is energy generation. This is achieved through high quality connections and breaking large goals into motivating small wins. For academic research, we can look at Karl on small wins and Amabile and Kramer on progress principle. Fourthly, we have the principle of love and beauty. The academic field is axiological resonance. This is the extent to which an agent can find meaning in their work. Can they find some truth, beauty, and goodness? Do they feel like they're doing something meaningful? When a goal has meaning, this provides motivation to overcome difficulties, and it offers a higher level of participation. The academic research, we can look at the field of management, spirituality, and religion. So fifth, we have the principle of being as the center of harmony. The academic field is systemic stakeholder equilibrium. We can ask, who do I need to respect to maintain harmony? This is the need to ensure that the pursuit of a goal does not violate the support thresholds of key stakeholders. For example, my family and the team members, suppliers, and even the environment. Violating key stakeholders leads to a loss of network support, often causing a loss of energy. For academic research, we can look at stakeholder theory and work-family enrichment theory. Next, we have Principle 6, the principle of personal growth, academic field, adaptive capacity building. What do I need to learn to achieve this goal? This is the integration of learning goals to actively develop competences to match the objective. The academic research, we can look at DWEX learning versus performance goals. And lastly, we have the principle of vitality elements. In the academic field is dynamic feedback sensitivity. How can I learn from my successes and mistakes in real time? This is the feedback loop through which I constantly gain vitality elements or energizing data to reduce the differences between where I want to be compared to where I actually am. Without frequent energizing feedback, we have an escalation of commitment to a failing course. The academic research, this is linked to control theory. In summary, our framework integrates previous helpful insights into a larger unified theory. Locke and Latham's theory is linked to cognitive behavioral alignment. Bandura's self-efficacy is linked to adaptive capacity building, and self-determination theory is linked to generative interaction and stakeholder equilibrium. They're all talking about parts of a bigger model. So how might we use this framework? Of course, we can use it all kinds of ways because people are trying to achieve goals all the time. Well, one way is, for example, in companies where in performance reviews, they should evolve so they keep track of all 7 principles. Instead of just asking simplistic questions such as, did you hit your goals and your target? Leaders can get a bigger understanding and a deeper understanding of the ecology that the worker, the employee, is working in by asking all about the different 7 principles. Who did you collaborate with? Did it go well? What new skills did you develop? What did you need more? Did you feel the work was meaningful? How can we make it more meaningful? These kind of questions. This would automatically allow leaders to become more aware of the strengths and weaknesses of their own leadership style, and also allow them to personalize employee development. We also suggest that our framework should be integrated into a project from the start. This would allow a team to be focused and aligned by discussing all of the 7 principles openly. Where can they find meaning? Are the resources available? Where can they find them? What education do they need? Everybody would be on the same page. Changes within the sphere of each principle can occur as the project moves forward. With the whole person being involved, goal achievement is much more likely. Our framework also asks organizations to consider a broader way to analyze systemic well-being. Outputs, which is typical measurement today, like profit or hitting a target, are merely downstream indicators of deeper systemic dynamics. We encourage organizations to move beyond these traditional key performance indicators towards a process health dashboard. The underlying ethos here is that the system is healthy, results will naturally occur. Next, teams can consider a 7 principles diagnosis to understand why a project failed. For example, was there an axiological resonance deficit? Was the goal framed only as cost reduction, not as the development of craftsmanship or innovation? Did the goal lack truth, goodness, and beauty, leading to limited compliance and a lack of motivation? Or principle 5, did the aggressive timeline of the goal violate other key stakeholders in the system. Were resignations predictable? A systemic recoil, for example, etc. Well, there are lots of implications for other systems because all other systems are always trying to achieve goals. The 7 principles of creation apply in all settings where goal achievement is important. Since humans are always being human, the 7 principles apply to personal goals, to marriages, to religious institutions, charities, and to lawmaking. For example, married couples need to learn to respect each other or find time to create beauty together and communicate so as to create unified plans that create energy. All those who take time to reflect on how these core principles play a role in their desired task will enhance their ability to succeed. Our model uncovers many wider sociological and spiritual implications. For example, the 7 principles of creation were not lost at the fall of man. People of both good and bad intentions have been using the 7 principles since the beginning of time to achieve their goals. For example, Abraham built a wonderful business. These principles appear to be built into the subconscious of the universe. When people have bad intentions, we typically find them manifesting in principle 4, for example, a selfish sense of goodness or valuing deception rather than truth, and principle 5, with no desire to respect other key stakeholders in the system. So the limitations and future research. Our framework is currently grounded in theoretical reasoning and it lacks empirical validation. Future research should validate the 7 principles of creation using established scales. For example, the Work Family Enrichment Scale by Steger and the Work and Meaning Inventory by Greenhouse and Powell. Additionally, the framework's universal claims must be tested across different cultural contexts, where constructs like axiological resonance might be interpreted differently. To address the whole person, we need a holistic ecological framework for goal achievement. The challenge for scholars and practitioners is to move beyond the mechanics of execution and embrace the complex living ecosystem of human creation. Thank you very much. I wish you well.